Hey there folks, and welcome to this video. Now you might notice that this section I usually call Generator is a bit different now. I'm publishing it into the main feed, and it is going back to stuff that I had around 2020 and 2021 where it's got eye-catching titles. I'm going to quickly explain the changes, then I'm going to give a demo run of what to expect for the rest of 2024. Now, this is a structure that I am going to try for the rest of this year, and then going into 2025, reevaluate and see whether it's working. But the new structure is essentially this. I'll start off by talking through the week's videos, a bit like a traditional kind of general notice. Then I'll be moving on to a couple of articles that caught my eye. These will usually be up to date within a couple of days. I won't catch all the big ones, or at least not immediately, but it does allow me to do more things I want to do in the week, like more reviews, more previews, cover more racing events, and do a couple of other little bits and pieces that I really want to explore. But it also means that I can have that more thoughtful response to the articles rather than just reading it off the page for a minute. Because whilst I do enjoy that, I like being able to give my own insight and being able to go, oh, this reminds me of this. Now, there is an especially big reason for it, which is in the next 3 months, so until this point in November, I only have 5 days that don't have a video currently allocated to them. And I think I mentioned yesterday in the anniversary video that 2025 is already being largely booked out. So I only have 7 days in the whole of the May to July period in 2025 that don't have a video currently scheduled for them, and that's without World RX, the European Rally Championship, and I think the British Rally Championship being factored into that. So three series I have been covering this year because they haven't confirmed their calendars yet. So what this means is over the course of the video I might look at 2 or 3 different headlines and discuss them. How much detail I do, that might vary, and that's one of the things I'm going to try out over the course of these next few months, because for example the script today is about 1600 words long, and that's just the note form. But this is going to be long, sorry about that, but hopefully the way the timestamps work mean that you can catch the bit that stands out most for you. Without further ado, let's get into the rundown for this week. And tomorrow we'll have the review for the BTCC at Knock Hill. I was lucky to be able to sit down and follow the entire day's action yesterday before we do a preview for the Czech Baron Rallies in. The next round is the ERC. I'm really looking forward to seeing how that one pans out over the course of the weekend and following that one live over the weekend as well. Then from there, it'll be a review for NASCAR at Richmond. I watched that live last night. I'm so glad I was able to. I have a lot of thoughts on that one, and watching it live, I think, managed to make those thoughts even clearer than watching it as a replay. Which sounds a bit strange, but that is the way that it works for me sometimes. Then we'll have a preview for World RX returning to Metet in Belgium. Then on Saturday, it'll be a big project that I've been working on for about 6 months, hoping it'll come out this Saturday. I really want it to, because I can't think of another place, like I said, in the next couple of months that would allow me to do it. Then we'll have a review for the Baron Rally on Sunday, and then on Monday, because the next general notice will be on Tuesday, we will be looking at NASCAR at Michigan, a nice 1.5 track. So without further ado, let's get into the headlines. And we're going to start off with F1 and Oscar Piastri. Oscar Piastri shared a photo on social media of a fractured rib as F1's going into its off-season. Oh, it's kind of summer break, it's shut down, but with a twist. Fans were quick to note the date, speculating this was after the British Grand Prix had the scan done. You get confirmation of this by looking at the date of birth on the scan, because you might go, oh, actually, it could be the American date system. Well, his date of birth on the scan, so you can tell it was just after the British Grand Prix. Now, it's not uncommon for drivers to race through injuries. Recently, one of the headlines that grabbed my attention was Max Verstappen, revealing he was suffering from long-term impacts of the Silverstone 2021 crash as late as the COTA race that same season, and described what sounds like concussion-like symptoms. But we do need to approach it with a measured response. Is it impressive that Piastri won in Hungary 2 weeks later, no matter the circumstances surrounding that race, given the fact that he has the injury? Of course. And arguably, it makes the feat greater that he was driving with a fractured rib. But should we be encouraging F1 drivers? Because that's where it gets complicated. Now, I'm not much of a kind of stick and ball fan, apart from the occasional football game. But rugby here in the UK has had a massive increase of players suing the leagues because of head traumas could lead to higher risks of reduced cognitive function or even an early death and complications related to head injuries. Fans on the other side of the pond in the States think the NFL, but without the headgear or any of the other protective gear, and the amount of concussion-related injuries you get and the big stories around concussion in the NFL. Where I'd be worried is we're encouraged drivers to rage through big injuries and let them aggravate these injuries further or worse. And it needs to be clearer in the future what's okay, what's not, and what the reporting process is, whether the FIA centralises that for FIA sanctioned events. I mean, NASCAR's been really good at doing, say, playoff waivers. Now, that's because they have to play off postseason format. F1 doesn't do that. But a way that prioritises the health of the competitors is always a good way. But anyways, from there, we're going to keep with F1 and talk about a story following an interview with Zhou Guanyu. And Zhou was interviewed by the race as part of their summer break coverage. In the interview, he discusses a lot, from his on-track performances to the prospect of other Chinese talents emerging over the next few years. However, in the middle of the article, there's a section about the racist abuse that Zhou felt when he was announced as driver for the team that we otherwise know as Sauber for 2022. And I'm going to read 3 quotes from the article. So, the first one says, "It's quite clear in 2021 when I signed the contract with Alfa Romeo, there was a lot of racist abuse people were giving me because they didn't follow my career. You come around with 3rd place in F2, winning 4 races that year, and now you see a driver from outside the top 10 in F2 at the moment is getting a seat, and there's a lot of support for him. It shows prejudice around nationality is a reality. That's difficult to change when you're Asian, coming from different countries in Asia, but I'm not worried about that. There is a degree of uncomfortable truth to this, though. Zhou, as the first Chinese driver, would take a similar amount of flack to somebody like, say, Nikita Mazepin, whether rightly or wrongly, as both were seen to be getting into sport through the old adage of cash being king, rather than on pure meritocracy compared to the poor shares and the ILOTs of the world. But there is a double whammy when you look at the world that Zhou entered F1 during. A world coming out of the pandemic that many blamed his own country for, including a man who was a so-called leader of the free world at the height of the crisis, where the political climate had changed and people were becoming more critical of what was being seen as sports washing, again by countries such as China. I'd be surprised if people were upset with me saying racism is wrong, but then given the comments I received for daring to look at F1's We Racist One initiative when it was active, I know that people can and will be upset with it, but we do have to listen to his concerns. I recently received a comment from a long-time subscriber who asked what I thought about We Racist One and its impact in retrospect. And to be honest, I think the impacts have been limited, but positive, if not all visible. Whilst the sport arguably can and should do more to stomp out hate, I mean, the drivers recorded a pledge in 2022 that I can't remember seeing being repeated in the last couple of seasons. And I actually saw the 2022 pledge recently reposted on social media by a fan account. The main successes of We Racist One were some of the initiatives that were set up to increase access to engineering or to the sport for people from backgrounds that aren't often well represented in the sport. A sport that's getting more and more difficult to access without some combination of connections and startup capital. But this is proof that F1 and humanity more generally, we need to be better and do better. And to end this on a more upbeat note, we're going to go over to the WRC. We'll end this video with 3 articles on Dirtfish to speculate about people stepping up into WRC or even stepping up within the top class of the WRC. As Hyundai evaluates whether to keep a 3rd car part-time next season or go full-time with that 3rd car, Frenchman Adrien Fourmeau is rumoured to be linked with a potential full-time Hyundai ride. At the same time, Jari-Matti Latvala has stoked fires about a potential step up for Finn Sami Pajari after his debut last time out of Finland, as well as a potential return to the top class for Oliver Solberg. The last driver linked with a stepped up is Martin Sesks, who performed well in his 2 starts for M Sport in Poland and in Latvia. So we'll pick these apart in 3 different sections. Firstly, Formo and Hyundai. Formo has 4 podiums to his name in the first half of the season, putting him 1 behind Taka Katsuta's 5 throughout his career to date. Katsuta went full-time proper in 2021, the same time as Formo made his top flight debut part-time. That was when he was sharing the car with Sunoda and then took over in the late season from Sunoda after Sunoda left M Sport. But Katsuta has an extra year under his belt, as Formo was shuffled out of the team last season after a dreadful 2022 that saw him miss 3 rallies towards the end of the season due to the crashes he had throughout the season and the damages done to the chassis. Rich Miller has rightly pointed out that Hyundai is a team that works for some but not for all. I mean, quite famously, we saw Sebastian Loeb fail to win there, whereas M Sport has a family atmosphere that allows drivers the ability to thrive properly. I mean, if you look at the entire top class, most drivers have passed through WB at some point or another. Formo would join the likes of Tanak, Neville, Mickelson, Lappy and Evans, who drove for them on the way up, as well as the likes of Sordo and OJ, who drove for them as established drivers. Heck, even the people who haven't driven for M Sport directly, like Taka Katsuta and Carla Rovanperä, have made their WRC debuts driving Fiesta R5s back in the day, so they have driven Ford products. As is pointed out in another article on Dirtfish, for every Lloyd Tanak there's a Francois Duval. The young Belgian in 2005 went across to Citroën to be teammate to Sebastian Loeb after Carlos Sainz retired. He ended up being benched for Sainz 2 rounds in the middle of the 2005 season. Duval in 2004 had 5 podiums for Ford. In 2005, in the Zara that was dominant. All season he got 4. He got 1 point scoring score in the first 6 events, which is why he got benched for 2 rounds and substituted out for Carlos Sainz. Now, could Formo become the next Tanak? Sure. But with Hyundai, it's a gamble. He'd have to make a very tricky car work for him, and his defeated rally winners, your likes of Andreas Mikkelsen in the past, and arguably the greatest driver to have ever gone rallying in Sebastian Loeb, who won on debut with M Sport, of course dominated with Citroën, but never won for Hyundai. Got a couple of podiums, sure, but never won. But secondly, let's talk about Solberg. Oliver Solberg could be the WRC2 champion at the end of this year, but that's no guarantee of a top flight return. Jari-Matti Latvala, who beat Solberg in Finland, Solberg beat him to the glass win in Finland, said that Oliver's ready to return to the top class. Solberg previously drove for Hyundai part-time in 2021 and 2022, but the big issue for Oliver Solberg is sponsors. It was alleged that he and his primary sponsor, which is Monster Energy, were considering a sponsored entry with M Sport for one of the Pumas. I can't remember if this was supposed to be for this season or if it's supposed to be for last season. I think it was meant to be for this season. However, that deal allegedly fell through thanks to Red Bull sponsorship for M Sport. This is never officially confirmed, but Lloyd Tanak, I think, is now a Red Bull athlete as well. He wasn't at the time, that's why there was a rumour about Monster Energy. Unfortunately, the sport isn't the same sport that we knew 15 years ago, when his dad went privateer with his own team, the Zara, then later the C4 and the DS3. It was still expensive then to go private, but it was still possible for it to be financially feasible. Right now it's not for the Rally ones. As a result, the possible unexpected baggage that comes with the sponsorship money could hold Solberg back. Almost like Carlos Sainz, who left Toyota at its peak in the 90s out of loyalty to Repsol, went to the Jolly Club Lancia, and when that fell through and Toyota won with a Castrol-backed car, went across to Subaru. Then went across to Ford, and then went back to Toyota, when they were still sponsored by Castrol. However, the newest Rally 1 debutants don't have the same baggage. The question is, however, which of Sami Pajari and Martin Sesks will be the next drivers to step up to the top class? I think that the answer is quite complex here. Pajari is the most likely to get a full-time ride sooner, but Sesks, I would say, is more likely to get one-off and part-time programs. This is because Pajari has strong connections to Toyota Gazoo Racing World Rally Team. mean that he's less likely to have to rely on sponsorship and rely on his connections and performances instead. He can just rely on the fact that he is competing for the title in WRC2, he gets on well with the TGR lot, and I mean, it's been rumoured for quite a while that he would be considered the next development prospect, like the kind of next Carlo Pompera, perhaps. Sesks, on the other hand, does have good sponsorship. It's not enough to fund a full-time ride. I mean, this season's rallies were in part backed by a WRC promoter themselves, but you can fall back on it a bit more. And with that being said, Sesks doesn't have quite the same performances as Simon Pajari does this season. His best three finishes were the 5th that he got in Poland in his WRC debut, a 6th place in the ERC in Sweden, and then a 7th place in his home rally, the WRC. Part of it is bad luck. Other MRF runners have struggled this season to the extent that Efren Lorena has parted ways with MRF, and some of it has been mistakes, such as crashing out of the lead in the penultimate stage of Rally Hungary in the ERC. But we know that both Sesks and Pajari have the performance, and they've shown it in previous seasons. Sesks won Poland and Latvia last season, and dominated Latvia previous 2 editions in the ERC. But it's a matter of sponsorship, performances, and the availability of the seats that is the determining factor for both of them. So, if there is a space at Toyota for Pajari, if Sesks has the money to fund a couple of rallies with M Sport, those are the things that will make the difference. And I say the teams that they've run for this season, but I would argue those are the best routes to go through. They're the ones that they're currently associated with, they're the ones they're currently linked up with in some way, shape or form. Even though both of them are currently running GR Yaris Rally 2s in their respective competitions. But that's that for this video, and wow, this has gone on for a while. Not only that, but I felt halfway through my voice was starting to go, so I'm probably going to have to think about how many words I use in the future. But anyways, thank you for watching, thank you for joining, and as always, I hope to see you again soon. Bye for now.